morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and taking good care of yourselves. We're still meeting virtually amidst this new variant of the pandemic, the Omicron. And I do hope that you're all staying safe and well. And at some point, I hope that we're going to be able to meet again in person. But until then, we get to meet virtually through the wonders of the media age. So today we're observing the Salinas Buddhist Temple, January Shotsuki Hoyo, memorial service. And today we're also commemorating the passing of Shinran Shonin with our Hoonko service, which is our service to repay our indebtedness to Shinran. And I will be introducing to you our guest speaker, Reverend Henry Adams, a bit later. But before that, I'd like to begin with an opening reading. If you'll please join me in Gassho. Jiriki Hongan Gyu Manzoku, Nyoryo Kengo, Kukyogan, Jihi Hoben Fushigi Nari, Shimuryo Himyo Seyo. The divine power and the original vow, the perfect, clear, firm, and fulfilling vow. Inconceivable is the compassionate means. Take refuge in the truly unfathomable one. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Now I'd like to continue with the chanting of the Sambujo, and this will be followed by the Hyobyakumona, the dedication reading, and then the chanting of the Shoshin. And we will scroll the names of families observing Shotsuki in the month of January here in Salinas. Today, on this occasion of the Salinas Buddhist Temple, January Shotsuki Holy, in observance of the Hoonko Memorial for our founder Shinran Shonin, the Sangha has reverently come before Amida Buddha. With deepest reverence and thankfulness for the all-embracing wisdom and compassion of Amida, we reaffirm the three homilies. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Kiya Roots, Namo Kiya Ho, Namo Kiya So, Namman Davis, Namman Davis. Nimyo Purya Junyorai Namo Bhagashigi Ko Ozo Bosatsuin Niji Zai Seji Zai Obusho Token Shabutsu Jodo Yin Kokudo Ninden Shizen Mat Onryum Uja Shushogan Chochuke Dai Guze Okoshi Shishoju Yusem Yosho Monje Po Muho Muryo Muhengo Muge Mutai Koen no Shoujo Kangi Chieko Buddha-nan-ji Musho-ko Shonichi-ga-ko Shojin-setsu Isai-gunjo-muko-sho Ongan-yogo-shogo Shin-shin-shin-yogan-nien Kyoto-gakusho-dai-nehan Ishi-metsu-do-ganjo-ju Nyorai shoi koshu se yoi setsumida hongan kai gojoku akuji gonjo kai oshin nyorai nyojitsugan nohotsu chinen ki aishin budan bonno tokunehan bonjo gyaku hosayen yu nyoshu shinyu kai chimi 세슈 싱어 저셔거 이너 수이함 음여한 돈나이 신서 시은느 여부신지츠 신젠된 인연이거 은느 시계묘무한 야그신갱교 다이교기 소그어 저세츠고 아그슈 이사이센 마크본문인 원신여라이 그세간 우츠kon고다이 쇼게샤 제닌묘 분다리케 이다부츠 홍간넨르 자갱교만 나크슈조 신교주지 진니난 난추시난 무가시 인도 사이텐 시렁게 주가지지기시고서 겐다이쇼고세쇼이 묘녀라이 혼세요기 샤카녀라이 료가셋 이슈고묘난텐직 류주다이지슈도세 시츠노사이하 우무겐 센세츠다이저무조호
Shogun Giji Showan Genji Nangyo Rokuroku Shingyo Igyo Shidora Okunen Mida Butsu Hongan Jinen Sokujin Yu Hitsujo Yuino Josho Nyo Raigo Oho Dai Guzeyon Tenjin Bo Satsuzoron Set Kimyo Muge Konyo Rai Eshu Tada Kenshin Jit Ose no Chodai Segan O Yuhongan Dikieko Ido Gunjo Shoishin Kinyu Kudoku Dai Hokai Jitsugyaku Nu Dai Eshu Shu Tokushi Renge Zo Sekai Sokusho Shinyo Hosho Jin Yui Bon no Ringen Jinzu Yu Shoji Onji Oke Onshi Don Ran Ryo Tenshi Joko Ran Shobo Satsurai Sanzo Rushi Jujo Kyo Onjo Sengyo Kiraku Tenjin Bo Satsuron Chuge Odo Inga Kensegan Ogen Neko Yutari Shoujo Shin Yui Shinjin Wakuzen Bonbu Shinjin Bot Shoji Shoji Sokunehan Ishi Muryo Komyodo Shoshujo Kaifuge Tosha Kesho Donansho Yui Myojo Katsun Yu Manzen Jiriki Hengon Shu Enman Tokugo Kansen Sho Sampu Sanshin Keiongo Zomatsu Hometsu Dohin Isho Zo Wakuchi Guze Shian Yokai Shomyoka Zendo Dokumyo Bushoi Hoai Josan Yogyakuwa Omyo Myogo Keninen Ai Nihongan Dai Chigai Yoja Shoji Kongo Shin Yoki Chinen So Ogo Yoi Daito Gyakusan Nin Sokusho Hosho Shijo Rak Genshi Kokai Chidaikyo Henki Anyo Kannisai Senzo Shushin Hansen Jin Oken Ido Shobendu Kokuju Akunin Yui Shobut Yakuzai Seshuchu Onno Shogen Suifuken Tai Himuken Joshoga Onshi Gengu Myobukyo Enmin Zen Makubon Burnin Shinshu Kyo Shoko Henshu Senjaku Hongangu Akuse Genai Shojirin Denge Kechi Gijo Ishoshi Sokunyu Jakujo Muida Ichi Shinjin Inon Yu Ukyo Nai Nishu Shito Yosai Buhen Okujokuwa Osokuji Udoshin Rika Shinshi Oso Amen. Amanda,
Thank you very much, everyone. And now I'd like to ask you to join me in the Gatha Shinran Sama. The threefold refuge. Difficult is it to receive a human form, now we're living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha, now we hear it. We do not cross over to the truth in the present life. In what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter. even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Sankhya-mo, Ninjin kegatashi, ima sudani yuku, Uppo kikigatashi, ima sudani kiku, Kono mi konjo ni mukate dose zumba, Sarani izure no shoni mukataka kono mi o dose. Daishu moro tomo ni shishin ni sambo ni kieshi tatematsuru beshi. Mizukara butsu ni kieshi tatematsuru. Masani negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni. Daido wo taige shite mujo yoko san. Mizukara ho ni kieshi tatematsuru. Masani negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni. Fukaku kyozo ni irite chie umi no gotoku naran. Mizukara so ni kieshi tatematsuru. Masani negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni. Daishu wo tori shite sai muge naran. Ujo jinjin mimyo no ho wa yaku sen mango nimo ayu koto katashi. Orima kenmon shi yuji suru koto wa tari. Negawaku wa nirai no shinjitsu gi o geshi tatematsura. Nammandabus, 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 nammandabus. Thank you very much. Once again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our service here in Salinas. I'm very honored and happy to introduce to you our guest speaker for today's Hoonko service here in Salinas. Reverend Henry Adams was the former minister of the Oxnard Buddhist Temple and is presently at the San Mateo Buddhist Temple. And Reverend Adams is very active in the Ministers Association on many committees. He's also helps teach coursework at the Institute of Buddhist Studies and is very, very well versed in Jodo Shinshu teachings in both English and Japanese. So I'm very happy to introduce to you our guest speaker, Reverend Henry Adams, who will first be speaking in English and then in Japanese. Bear with me 1 minute.
Namandabutsu, 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 namandabutsu. Please join me in Gasho. Let us receive the wisdom and guidance of Shinran Shonin. Signs of long years of saying the Nembutsu and aspiring for birth can be seen in the change in the heart that had been bad and in the deep warmth for friends and fellow practicers. This is the sign of rejecting the world. You should understand this fully. Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. Hello, I'm Reverend Henry Adams, the resident minister of the San Mateo Buddhist Temple and supervising minister for the Buddhist Church of San Francisco. I'm truly honored to be joining my Dharma friends at the Salinas Buddhist Temple in observance of the Hoonko service, our most significant service in our annual calendar of major services in the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist tradition. I'm grateful to Reverend Shinseki for the kind invitation to join you today, and I'm grateful to your Sangha for inviting me to be a part of this virtual observance of the Hoonko service. In a normal year, I would be enjoying a drive down the coast to come and visit my Dharma friends in Salinas. I always very much enjoy getting out of this kind of hustle bustle Silicon Valley area where I live, and enjoying the coastside environment there in Salinas, and the warmth and the friendship and generosity of your Sangha. And so we're observing this year Hoonko once again in this virtual format. And although we're not able to be physically together, we are able to be together in our hearts and minds as we look to the inspiration that we receive from Shinran Shonin's example, his life, and the direction of his life, pointing us to Amida Buddha, for whom we feel deepest gratitude for providing our path to liberation from suffering, from stress, from anxiety, liberation from all the difficulties of this world through birth in his world of enlightenment that we call the Pure Land. And so for us, this Hoonko is a time for taking refuge in the teachings provided by Shinran Shonin, taking refuge in the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. It's a time for saying Namo Amida Butsu as an expression of that feeling of comfort that we receive from the Buddha. I don't know about all of you, but I find that this is a time when I really need something I can turn to for comfort and for refuge. As I look back upon, the past few months, the past year, I was really hopeful that we would maybe be in a different place, that it might be possible for me to come down in person to visit and spend this time with you in Salinas. However, even though many of us have been able to get vaccinated this past year, even young children, I have three boys, ages 10, 8, and 3. And the oldest two were able to get vaccinated at the end of last year. And so we were looking forward to maybe resuming some of our previous activities, like things like going to movies or going out to restaurants and so forth that we've been holding back on. But we find that with this Omicron variant, all bets are off, and that we are once again more and more taking refuge in our home, staying home, ordering takeout, maybe inviting one friend to come over and play in the backyard, things like that. We're trying to find these places where we can be comfort, feel safe, right? And I think about what are our motivations for staying in, right? Is it the fear of getting infected? That's, I think, for me, a strong fear of getting infected, or the fear of that we might be contagious ourselves and that we might infect others. Right? Just the other day, we've been doing this hand sanitizing thing for over 2 years now. We've really been, remember about this time 2 years ago, they were starting to say there's this virus out there. You got to start, sanitizing your hands, washing your hands. And, I caught myself, went into a store, there's the hand sanitizers everywhere. And as I was walking out of the store, I sanitized my hands. And then I realized, I didn't sanitize my hands when I walked into the store, right? So I'm thinking about, all the germs I probably got while I was here in the store buying groceries, but not thinking about the germs that I had carried in when I came into that store. So still find that I have this very self-centered mind, and that when I'm looking for refuge, so often that refuge means someplace where I can feel safe, right? Refuge for safety. And so we're living these virtual lives, trying to stay safe. We've kind of transitioned, maybe we're doing some kind of hybrid things, but many of our activities, Sangha activities, meetings, things like that, family gatherings, we've come to be quite comfortable doing these things in a virtual way. And we've realized new possibilities. Right? We've realized that there are places we can go online that we weren't able to go in person, right? To visit, certain different temples, hear Dharma talks, and so forth. There's all kinds of entertainment, so much things online. Where are we going to find peace of mind? Right? Maybe you have Dharma talks you like to listen to, or websites you go to read Buddhist teachings. So in this hectic, crazy time, we find comfort in the Dharma. And so we look to wise teachers like Shinran Shonin to be our example. Shinran Shonin, who himself took refuge in the Dharma at the age of 9 years old. The circumstances around Shinran's entering into the Buddhist life are a little bit unclear, but the most recent scholarship indicates that Shinran Shonin and his father and all of his brothers, all around the same time, they entered into the Buddhist life. And one theory I heard that I thought was very interesting was that there was a lot of conflict and war going on at the time when Shinran was a young boy, and that there was a great battle, a series of battles, an ongoing struggle between two powerful samurai clans, the Taira clan and the Minamoto clan. There was a leader of the Taira clan named Taira no Kiyomori, who had the upper hand at the time of Shinran's childhood. And there was a member of the Minamoto clan named Minamoto no Yorimasa, who had raised an army to try to challenge Kiyomori. And it's said that Shinran Shonin's family had some kind of distant, tenuous connections to this Minamoto family, but that Taira Kiyomori was so vengeful that anyone who had any sort of association might be subject to punishment or to attack. And so many families did what we see Shinran Shonin's family doing, where the men of the family, the men and the boys, took refuge in the Buddhist community, in the Sangha. By becoming monks, by entering into the Buddhist community, they were leaving the world and would be safe, find a refuge from the turmoils of the society at that time. Now, Shinran Shonin spent 20 years of his life, from the time he ordained at the age of 9 at the Shonin temple, connected with the monastery and the Tendai schools on Mount Hiei. And then he studied for 20 years as a monk on Mount Hiei, there studying the Dharma in this refuge from all of the conflict and the difficulties, the greed, the anger, the delusion that was, part of this everyday life in society. And he was seeking and receiving this refuge in the temple environment. But in the midst of that, he began to notice that there was a difference between what the teachings were and what some of the monks and the other people there at the temple were doing. And he came to feel that perhaps this isn't the best environment for me to seek true awakening. I've worked very hard. I've done my best here in this place. Not sure what else I can do. And it's clear that this is not the place where I will be able to attain awakening and liberation. And so he winds up leaving this refuge and going into another retreat in a place closer to the center of life in the capital, a temple called Rokkakudo, the six-sided hall of practice dedicated to Prince Shotoku. And he went in there and he took refuge in the imperial prince, who was an expression of compassion, even to this day is revered in Japan as a wise and compassionate ruler. So having perhaps seen some corruption and been disillusioned with life on Mount Hiei, then he enters into this temple, taking refuge in Prince Shotoku, taking refuge and seeking his path forward. And he dedicates himself to this 100 days of practice, this secluded environment, trying to find a way to be free from his greed, his anger, his passions. And in the midst of this, he has a very interesting dream. He has a vision in which Prince Shotoku appears to him and says, if you are going to break your monastic vows and to become a person who is involved with a woman, which as a monk, right, you're not supposed to do, but he says, I will adorn you throughout your life. I will be this woman who will be your guide. And Shinran wakes up from this dream, and it must have been really shocking, surprising for him. And he says, I need to find some place where I can understand this. And he would have heard of a teacher named Honen Shonin, a teacher who welcomed people of all different lifestyles, monks who were closely observing the precepts, as well as monks who had broken the precepts, a refuge in the Dharma. So Shinran Shonin goes to Honen's teachings. He goes to Honen and he hears these teachings. And again, he commits himself to a 100-day refuge. And it's interesting because he winds up staying for years with Honen Shonin. And he hears this teaching of the Nembutsu, and he undergoes a change of heart, a change of mind, from hearing about Amida Buddha's compassion, hearing about how the Buddha's compassion extends specifically to those who are carried away at times by their greed, anger, and ignorance. And Shinran comes to recognize that the problem is not what's going to come at him from outside, but to understand what is in his own heart, to feel a deep sense of concern, not for what others might do to him, but how his life impacts others. And this is expressed in these words of Shinran Shonin from one of his letters that I read. Signs of long years of saying the Nembutsu and aspiring for birth can be seen in the change of heart that had been bad, the deep warmth for friends and fellow practices. This is the sign of rejecting the world, rejecting this world of greed, anger, and ignorance, taking refuge in the Buddha. Shinran is our model for this way of living. Shinran himself experienced great difficulties. After a number of years of studying with Honen, he and several of Honen's other leading disciples, and Honen Shonin himself, were subject to persecution of the Nembutsu teaching. Shinran was sent out into Echigo, the area of now Niigata Prefecture, a very rural area at that time. And in the midst of that, he shares this teaching of the Nembutsu. He goes out to share the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. And so for Shinran Shonin, he's gone from this thinking of how can I sort of shelter myself, take refuge from the world, to then being out in the world, realizing that that which he needs a refuge from is not the things coming out and at him at this world, but the greed, anger, and ignorance in his own mind. And he finds that refuge in the teachings of Amida Buddha, this change of heart that gives rise to deep concern for others and the well-being of the other people around us in our lives. And so it seems that perhaps we're going to be continuing to stay home a little bit more and have to limit some of our regular activities for a little while longer. If we think about this as something that we're doing to kind of protect ourselves, it might be easy to just say, now, whatever, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and then thereby cause harm for other people. However, if we take Shinran Shonin as an example and find our motivation for living in the Nembutsu, then the things that we do to protect ourselves and to keep others safe, they become much a lighter thing. It becomes much more easy to bear this, just as Shinran himself was able to bear great difficulties and challenges in his life with the sense that he was the recipient of Amida Buddha's great compassion. His life was settled on the path to awakening, to realizing birth in the Pure Land of Amida Buddha, through which all of his greed, anger, and ignorance would be transformed and he would realize the life of deep peace and bliss. And indeed, that life he did realize, birth in the Pure Land, and our Hoonko service is our occasion to reflect upon that truth. Shinran Shonin's birth in the Pure Land, in our own birth into that Buddha's world of enlightenment. So I thank you again for the opportunity to be with you and to take part in this very meaningful observance, which comes at a time when we can take great benefit from the wisdom and the courage of Shinran Shonin's life. So I'll conclude my reflection at this time. I invite you to join me in Gasho and the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namman Dabutsu. Namman Dabutsu. Namman Dabutsu. Namman Dabutsu. Nam. Namanda Butsu. Namandabats, 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 namandabats. 合唱をお願いします。例えば、あるものに7人の子がいたとしましょう。その7人の子の中で1人が病気になれば、親の心に平等でないわけがありませんが、その病気の子には特に心をかけるようなものであります。如来もまたその通りです。あらゆる衆生を平等に見ておられますが、罪ある者には特に心をかけてくださるのですと、何万だです。何万だです。皆様、こんにちは。私はサンマテオ仏教会およびサンフランシスコ仏教会赴任されている開教師アダムス・ヘンリーと申します。本日サリナス仏教会の法恩校のお取り次ぎのご縁をいただきまして誠にありがとうございます。本来ですと私がもう実際にサリナスにいて、ね、ご一緒に本土でお参りすることなんですけれども、今は、ね、新型コロナウイルスのことで、ね、皆様のご安全のためにこういうふうにこうオンラインでお参りさせていただいていますね。で、これは同じ一つの場所に集まってはいませんが、心が一つのところにありますね。で、その心はどこにあるかと言いますと、それは感謝のところにありますね。阿弥陀様、そしてその阿弥陀様のご本願をいただいて、親鸞上人の、ね、親鸞上人の感謝のところにありますね。親鸞上人と言いますと、ね、どういうイメージが心に浮かんできますか？こういう親鸞上人がね、大きな、傘のね、この大きな帽子をかぶって、ね、杖を持って、お念珠を持って、この旅の姿がね、一番、なんていう典型的とか、それを見たら、これ親鸞上人ですね、と、すぐに思いますね。それは、親鸞上人は、この阿弥陀様の見教えを伝えるために、もういろいろなところに、ね、ご旅をなさった方ですね。この親鸞上人はもういろいろなところに行ったんですけれども、親鸞上人は一人で旅をしたのではなくて、ご家族を連れて旅をなさってたんですね。 皆様はご家族を連れて旅は行ったことありますか？私はこの間子供3人いますけど、妻と子供3人、5人で私の実家のミネソタに帰って久しぶりに冬のね、ミネソタに行ったんですね。で、何が心配したというと、子供たちに、ね、病気をならないこと。コロナウイルスもそうですけど、もう風邪とかね、あったらね、大変で、いろいろなね、手段をして子供たちを風邪をひかないように頑張ってたんですね。必ずね、マスクをつけて、そして暖かい服を着せて、で、途中でね、一人が、ね、咳が出て、もう心配して、で、何が心配かというと、この咳の要素で飛行機を乗れるかと、ね、それは子供の、ね、こう早く咳を治りたいから、もう一生懸命この咳をしている子供のね、もう薬をあげたり、温かくしてあげたら、その集中はいつもね、その子に来てしまったんですね。で、この仏様のお心は、こういうふうなお心ですね。この一番大変になっている人に心がかけていきますね。で、親鸞上人は、その優しい仏様の教えのために、いろいろ旅をなさってたんですけど、親鸞上人もある時に、ね、病気になってたんですね。で、親鸞上人が病気になってたら、私とちょっと違う、ね、反応だったと言えますね。私が病気になったらね、もう一生懸命自分のことを考えるんですね。私の保険は使える病院は近くにあるか、私のいつも飲んでる薬が近くに買えるかと、ね、どこでね、ゆっくり自分が休んで、自分が早く治るように、ね、そういうことは考えるんですけど、親鸞上人は違いますね。親鸞上人が病気になったらね、これがね、命がけの病気かなと、すぐに思って、で、何をしますとね、すべての生きているもののために、ね、1000回、ね、1000遍に仏説無料儒教を唱えるようにするんですね。何回も何回もその経を唱えて、で、ずっと唱えて、目が開いても目を閉じても、その言葉が見えるように。さすがにその経を何回もお勤めしたので、もう覚えてたんですけど、ずっとその経のことばかりを、ね、集中していたみたいんですね。で、その時に一緒にいらっしゃった奥様のエシニ様が、ね、ご一緒に行って、ずっと親鸞上人の看病をしていたんですね。で、親鸞上人はすごい熱を出して、手を触ったら熱いという感じで、ずっと横にいらっしゃったんですね。親鸞上人の心の中には、すべての衆生、すべての生きているもののために、ね、こういうお経を務めようとしてるんですね。命が限りあるから、すべてのもののために、今命ある限り頑張りましょうと思ってたんですね。で、途中で親鸞様が面白いことを聞いたんですね。親鸞上人は、なるほど、じゃあそういうふうですね。そのことですね、とおっしゃってたようですね。で、親鸞様は、何を言ってるかと。もしかして、熱でね、いろんな変なものを見たり、変な話をしていると。かなと思いまして、親鸞上に書きました。大丈夫ですか？大丈夫ですか？なんか頭がちょっとおかしくなってるんじゃないですかと言ってて。で、親鸞上人はその時に、いや、ね、気づいたんですよ。これが、私が自分の計らいで、自分の計らいがいると思ってたんですけど、それは違って、ね、ただお念仏だけが必要だと。これほどね、私の誤った心があると気づいてたんですね。で、それからもお念仏だけに、ね、頼んで、ね、お念仏で自分が全ての衆生を救うことができるというのは、もしかして、ね、いつか必ずこの後が終えたときは、必ずお浄土に往生して、ね、仏となり、すべてのものを 救えることがつきましたね。で、これはね、親鸞上人の素晴らしいお心ですね。自分だけのことじゃなくて、すべての主張、すべてのものを持ってっていらっしゃったんですね。というのは、私たちも、その導きを、ね、いただけるということですね。で、この親鸞上人と絵師人様のお姿を見て、私たちは今の時代をね、生き抜こうとしてるんですけど、結構そのお手本があるんですね。お互いに助け合って、絵師人様も親鸞上人の横にいて、ね、いろいろな、よく集中して、なんか小さいこと言ってもそれを聞こえてたんですね。それは楽なことじゃなかったですね。小さい子供も、ね、その時は3歳ぐらいの小さいな子供。で、日本の3歳は2歳ですね。2歳児が走り回っている間に、それでもご主人の看病をなさってたんですね。神人様は。で、こういうふうに、ね、お互いによく互いに聞いて、互いに気づいて、互いに助け合いながら、親鸞上人はその大変な中で阿弥陀様に任せたらいいよと私が気づいて、で、神様に伝えたから心配することなく、必ず阿弥陀様に任せたら、この命が終えてもお浄土に行けますよ。死ぬのではなくて生まれていくんですよということですね。これはありがたい教えですね。これは今の世の中ね、何があって明日何があるかわからないんですね。で、この世の中に力をいただくのはまさにこのお念仏、阿弥陀様の本願に任せるお心が私たちの力となるものだと味わっております。で、これがホーンコはちょうどいい時に来たと思います。ね、私たちがいろいろ不安になって、またいつ終わるかと思ってしまうね、もうイライラしたり、ね、落ち込んだりする、この中に親鸞上人のご要素をね、思い出して、親鸞上人がよりどころとしたお念仏を私たちもよりどころとして心のね力がつくんですね。仏様の力、他力本願の力が私たちの人生につくんですね。そして喜びと感謝のお念仏の日々が送れることができますね。ということは本日のお取り次ぎをここで終わらせていただきます。合唱念仏をしましょう。南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏。
少年一流のご関係の趣は、真珠のもって本当すられそう。そのゆえは、もろもろの造業を投げ捨てて、一心に乱に奇妙すれば、不思議の眼力として、運の偏りを情は事情せしめたも、そのくらいを、一年簿記入賞状始終とも釈し、その上の称名念仏、来我が往生定めたまいし、本法人の念仏、心べきなり、あなかしこ、あなかしこ。The non-Shonin taught that the essence of Jodo Shinshu is Shinju. The reason is that by abandoning all of the practices and completely entrusting ourselves in Amida Buddha. Our spiritual rebirth is assured by Amida through the inconceivable power of the primal vow. This is known as entering the ranks of the truly assured at the very moment of Shinji. Thereafter, all utterances of the Nembutsu should be understood only as expressions of gratitude for Amida's assurance of our spiritual rebirth. With reverence, I remain. Nam Mandavas, Nam Mandavas, Nam Mandavas, Nam Mandavas. Thank you so very much, Reverend Henry Adams, for sharing with us your thoughts as we commemorate the passing of Shinran Shonin. Before we close, I'd like to take a moment to share with you a few announcements. First of all, February services will all be live streamed. In February, we'll commemorate the day that Shakyamuni Buddha died with our Nirvana Day services. In conjunction, we will hold a pet memorial service on those days. So if you would like to share your pet's pictures with us, we'll honor your family pet at our Nirvana Day services in February. Now I'd like to ask you to join me in the Gatha Ondok-san 2. Odin Hoju Mimyon Jinen Showa no Gikaku Nitte Aien Gadio Sugure Tari Shoujo Gaku o Humyo Seyo. Delicate sound of jeweled trees of the jeweled forest produce natural music, serene and consonant. Excellent are the pathos, grace, elegance, and resonance. Take refuge in the pure music. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending today's Hoonko service and Salinas Shotsuki Hoyo in January. I want to take time also to express my deep gratitude to Reverend Henry Adams for taking time from his very busy schedule to share with us his thoughts as we commemorate Hoonko, the service expressing our indebtedness to Shinran Shonin. Thank you very much, everyone. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.